It's fitting that May the 2nd's card is sponsored by City of Wolves, where the event features 6 predators vying for the apex position, and it all takes place in an urban jungle, New York City. But the rewards exceed finances, as all of the card's fighters are vying for the respect they once commanded. Jose Ramirez, once considered the second best fighter in the division, is now considered a mere formality to be addressed before 2 other names rematch later this year. Devin Haney, once seen as the next pound-for-pound hopeful, is now a walking joke. Equally, Teofimo Lopez has stifled his own career via dubious performances. Arnold Barboza, long ignored by the establishment, has a chance at the Junior Welterweight Championship of the world. Rolando Romero, once an undefeated prospect, is now considered a walking punching bag. And Ryan Garcia, the biggest name on the card, near the top of the mountain, only to lose it due to an unclean lifestyle. In the City of Wolves, who will lead the pack? It is easy to forget that, at one time, the 32-year-old Jose Carlos Ramirez was once the second best junior welterweight in the world. With a well-controlled aggressive style, Ramirez built a highly respectable dossier. Starting in 2018, Ramirez toppled the undefeated Antonio Orozco, the tricky Jose Cepeda, the undefeated Maurice Hooker, and top contender Victor Postal. This earned him a shot at the undefeated, undisputed junior welterweight champion Josh Taylor. Ramirez fought well, but Taylor's early lead capitulated with 2 knockdowns, ended in defeat for the Mexican-American. Since then, Ramirez has suffered a series of ups and downs. His comeback win over veteran Jose Pedraza was uneventful. His stoppage win over Richard Comey came against a shop-worn boxer, and he recently struggled mightily against an old Francis Barthélemy before scoring a decision. But perhaps more damning was his recent loss to top contender Arnold Barboza in 2024. There, Ramirez proved unable to mount much of an offense against the quicker Barboza, losing a boring 12-round decision. Ramirez's last 2 performances have cast him as a shot fighter, still well-conditioned, but unable to pull the trigger or to anticipate incoming fire. This might prove perfect for his opponent, Devin Haney. Though the 26-year-old's record may officially stand at 31-0, his public record remains solid not only by the events of April the 20th, 2024, but also because of Haney's own behavior thereafter. Haney and his father trainer Bill had already alienated hardcore boxing fans with their penchant for propaganda and controversial comments, but their behavior after the erased loss against Ryan Garcia has further decreased their public standing. Turning pro in 2015, Haney accrued high hopes via his speed and quick reflexes. Starting in 2020, Haney defeated a trio of veterans in Yorkis Gamboa, Jorge Linares, and Joseph Diaz. Despite his lack of punching power, Haney made up for it with his ability to bank rounds. In 2022, due to favorable circumstances, Haney secured a bout with the lightweight champion, George Kambosos. Fighting in Kambosos' home country of Australia, Haney easily outboxed his foe before replicating the feat months later. In 2023, he took on his toughest challenge yet when he faced former pound-for-pound king Vasyl Lomachenko. Haney fought well, giving as good as he received, but the general consensus was that Lomachenko had landed the cleaner shots. Haney received an unpopular decision victory. Instead of going for a Lomachenko rematch, Haney moved up to 140 pounds and made people forget about his past controversy by dropping and outboxing the top contender, Regis Prograis. But greed overtook Haney. Eager for what was perceived as an easy payday, Haney took on the popular Ryan Garcia, a man more renowned for his social media skills than for his boxing ones. The underrated Garcia battered Haney, emerging with a decision win. Fortunately for Haney, Garcia subsequently and conveniently tested positive for a PED, thus converting the loss into a no contest. The bout had never occurred. But many fans doubted Garcia's PED efficacy. Moreover, despite Haney's skills and physical talent, many recall his inability to drop or even hurt 2 of the most notoriously weak chin lightweights of our generation, Gamboa and Linares. In fact, the older Linares is the one that hurt Haney, forcing the American to cling onto his opponent for 2 full rounds. Moreover, the smaller Jojo Diaz and Vasyl Lomachenko both regularly backed Haney up while landing clean shots. Another criticism against Haney is his propensity to play the system, Same-day weigh-ins were eliminated back in the 1980s in an attempt to give fighters time to properly rehydrate, but 24-hour weigh-ins have carried disastrous consequences, as big fighters, with the aid of legal and illegal supplements, cut numerous pounds to compete in lower weight divisions, only to repack the pounds the next day. In Haney's case, he's multiplied his advantage by extending the rehydration window from 24 hours to 30 or more, thus earning the title of weight bully. Some argue that weight bullying is not an advantage, but Devin Haney certainly believes so based on what he's told past opponents.
He said, "You're too small. You're too small. You're too small." He said it again. "You're too small. You're too small."
Haney's need for extra advantages is but yet another factor that casts doubt on his true abilities. Coming into the Haney-Ramirez bout, the main question is, how much ability have both men retained in the wake of debilitating losses? Despite Haney's loss reversal, Haney nevertheless suffered a beating on April the 20th, 2024. How will this affect his already questionable punch resistance? And perhaps more importantly, how will it affect his mentality? He must be wondering whether Garcia's shoddy PED was truly the reason for his inability to escape Garcia's power punches. Or perhaps he was simply exposed against a man his own size. The flip side to that coin is that the older Ramirez has looked even weaker in his past two fights, unable to pin down opponents as he once used to. Moreover, his main weakness is speed, and if Haney is still the same man who outboxed Regis Prograis in 2023, then Ramirez's night proves to be very long indeed. Can Ramirez dial back the clock? And if Haney defeats Ramirez, will you be convinced he still has it? Despite being a professional boxer since 2013, Barboza has yet to receive the accolades bestowed upon his 140-pound peers. He's been an undefeated contender, overlooked by both the fans and the media. The culprit might be his style. For instance, Romero is a strong bruiser who parlays his outlandish character into big bouts. Haney's skills and selective matchmaking attract pound-for-pound discussion. Lopez, with his explosiveness and penchant for risk-taking, attracted much hope back in 2020. Same with Ryan Garcia. Jose Ramirez, with his exciting style, was near the top of the food chain back in 2021. But Barboza lacks many of these flashy characteristics, both inside and outside the ropes. He's not the fastest boxer, nor the biggest puncher, and yet he keeps on winning. He has solid accuracy, good footwork, and a large amount of patience, the latter of which has served to dissuade fans from watching him. Now he gets his chance at the championship. Barboza finally came into his own in 2020 when he won a hard-earned decision over Alex Saucedo. In 2022, Barboza scored a decision over the tricky and then undefeated Danielito Zorrilla. In 2023, he combined his skills to outbox veteran Jose Pedraza. Then, in 2024, Barboza tasted the good and the bad. He stopped the tough gatekeeper, Jolizani Nongeni, something which Devin Haney and Raymond Murataya failed to do. But that very year, he took on Sean McComb. During 10 rounds, Barboza seemed unable to decipher the Irishman's style and received a dubious 10-round split decision win. But Barboza has since bounced back with a decision win over Jose Ramirez in 2024. Then, earlier this year, Barboza scored his biggest win as he traveled to England and took on the tricky Jack Catterall. In a battle of overly cautious boxers, Barboza's patience trumped Catterall's as he avoided falling into the Brit's traps and appeared to land the cleaner shots. With that, Barboza scored another split decision and now heads towards his biggest fight yet. At 27 years old, Lopez is the most accomplished boxer on this card, but it is the contrast between his successes and failures that make him perhaps the most volatile fighter on the docket. Having turned pro in 2016, Lopez's mix of speed and power attracted attention. In 2018, his knockout win over Mason Menard went viral. Lopez carried the momentum in 2019, earning a decision over the tough Masayoshi Nakatani, followed by a stoppage win over a then streaking Richard Comey. The win secured him a fight against the man many consider to be the best fighter on the planet, Vasyl Lomachenko. Lopez shocked the world by banking the early rounds against a surprisingly inactive Lomachenko, before surviving the Ukrainian's late rally. With that, Lopez entered the top 10 pound-for-pound rankings and became the undisputed lightweight champion. It would later emerge that Lomachenko's right shoulder had been injured prior to the Lopez bout, but many fans overlooked it and hailed Lopez as the next pound-for-pound force. Top-Rank Promotions, guiding both Lopez and Lomachenko, wished to arrange a rematch, but Lopez appeared unwilling to do so. He spent the majority of 2021 haggling with Top Rank before taking on the undefeated George Kambosos. There, Lopez came out uncharacteristically aggressive before being dropped. Lopez returned the favor late in the fight in what proved to be a sizzling encounter. In the end, Kambosos edged it, earning a split decision. As quickly as Lopez had reached the top, he was sent tumbling back down. Lopez sullied his reputation both before and after the bout by acting like a clown. He returned in 2022, scoring a stoppage win over the tough Pedro Campa. Later that year, he fought late replacement Xandor Martin. Lopez suffered a knockdown in that bout and was lucky to have a second one missed by the referee. But in between, Lopez proved unable to pin down the slippery Martin. Lopez walked away with a controversial split decision win and was left asking the same question that resided in fans' mind.
Bro, do I still have it? Do I still got it?
In 2023, Lopez returned against the champion, Josh Taylor. The bout proved competitive, but in the second half, Lopez surged ahead, and in the last round, had his foe in serious trouble. Lopez had redeemed himself, earning his second undisputed championship. Lopez has only fought twice since. In early 2024, he took on the overlooked Jamaine Ortiz. His talented challengers chose to fight in an overly negative fashion, but managed to exploit Lopez's inability to cut the distance. Lopez earned a close unanimous decision. Then, later that year, Lopez fought French contender Steve Claggett. The Canadian's aggressive style suited Lopez's penchant for counterpunching, but even then, Lopez failed to drop or stop his foe. Worse still, the tough Claggett managed to land way more jabs than a fighter of Lopez's caliber is supposed to absorb. The two lackluster wins earned Lopez much criticism, perhaps, however, nowhere near as much as his outside-the-ring antics, which some have construed as being racist. Upon closer inspection, Barboza and Lopez share similar styles. Both are natural counterpunchers who mostly throw 1 to 2 punches at a time. Also, both have had performances that have seriously cast doubts on their abilities against fighters who refuse to overcommit. In a bout featuring similar styles, will the difference come down to who's the more daring fighter? Or will Lopez's quicker and heavier arsenal sway the judges? If Barboza fights Lopez on the retreat, will Lopez, notorious for his inability to chase down opponents, suffer another defeat? Also, despite his limitations, Lopez possesses lightning reflexes and underrated upper body movement. Will this increase Barboza's hesitancy? Will Barboza enter the top 15 pound-for-pound rankings if he beats Lopez? Can he stave off the challenges that reside at 140 pounds? What happens if Lopez wins? Does he regain the respect he lost after his subpar 2024? Having turned pro in 2016, Rolando Romero emerged with a built-in reputation. Having shared the amateur and sparring canvas with fellow prospects, Romero was seen as a potential lightweight star. Though possessing an awkward style, Romero distracted critics with his powerful build and explosive style. But the doubt proved real in 2020 when Romero faced fellow prospect Jackson Marinez. There, the Dominican controlled Romero with a sharp jab and used stout technique to avoid Romero's firepower. Only due to shoddy judging did Romero escape with an underserved decision. On the third, Romero scored 2 stoppage wins over his subpar opposition before receiving an undeserving shot against lightweight star Gervonta Davis in 2022. Romero started well, rocking the favored Davis. But ultimately, Romero's technical deficiencies proved his downfall as he ran into a Davis bomb. Romero lost by a 6-round stoppage and remained idle for a year before moving up to 140 pounds. There, he mysteriously received a shot at a vacant strap against 40-year-old gatekeeper Ismael Barroso. What was supposed to be an easy title grab turned into a nightmare in the spring of 2023 as Barroso dropped and outboxed Romero throughout most of the bout. It was only thanks to horrible refereeing from Tony Weeks that Romero walked away with a dubious stoppage win. This only set him up for another beating when he took on former lightweight contender Isaac Cruz in 2024. Without a youth and strength advantage, and with a corrupt and incompetent referee missing, Romero suffered a beating en route to an 8-round stoppage. Romero returned later that year against tough guy Manuel Jaimes. There, Romero scored a mundane 10-round decision, but managed to show that he was far from finished. As the biggest name on the card, Ryan Garcia is also the most underrated boxer on it, and with good reason. Having turned pro in 2016, Garcia became famous via his social media posts. His boxing career, however, paled in comparison. Garcia's enviable mix of speed and power dazzled the fans, but in 2018, he took on the tough Carlos Morales. There, Garcia delivered a subpar performance, clinching onto his aggressive opponent, as well as being stunned by a jab, before emerging with a majority decision. Garcia then hired Eddie Reynoso, Saul Canelo Alvarez's trainer, and delivered 3 sensational performances, including a stoppage win over Olympic gold medalist Luke Campbell. A victory that also showed Garcia's mettle as he rose from a knockdown. Here, however, many of Garcia's faults appeared. Rumors abounded about acrimony between him and his promoter, Golden Boy Promotions. Strife caused due to Garcia's petulancy. Garcia also retired in 2021, right after the Campbell bout, only to return in 2022. His departure from Reynoso's stable earlier that year also cast further aspersions on Garcia's character, as rumors suggested he'd lacked the qualities necessary to remain at Reynoso's gym. Garcia hired Joe Goosen as a trainer and scored a dominant decision over Emmanuel Tagoe. He later scored an impressive stoppage over former titleist Javier Fortuna. In 2023, Garcia impressed the boxing world by acquiescing to Tank Davis's demands, which included a catchweight and a dehydration clause in order to secure the bout. Garcia fought well, but his overzealousness cost him a knockdown in the second round, followed by a stoppage loss in the 6th. Garcia returned later that year with a new trainer, Derek James. Garcia looked subpar against the strong Oscar Duarte, turning away and bending over instead of fighting on the inside. Garcia struck late in the fight and walked away with a stoppage. Perhaps because of Garcia's 2 subpar performances, Garcia earned a fight with Devin Haney. Going into the bout, Haney was highly regarded. Instead, Garcia turned the tables on Haney, missing weight at the official ceremony. Then, he used his speed, power, and underrated skills to thrice drop Haney en route to a decision win. Subsequently, the fight's result was reversed, but Garcia had earned a measure of redemption. Still, doubts remain over his abilities. Garcia has made a concerted effort to pressure fighters in the ring, pushing them back and looking for the stoppage. But as proven against Duarte and even in spots against Haney, Garcia is still unable to fight on the inside, choosing instead to clinch or turn away from his opponents. And despite Romero's own deficiencies, he's a strong junior welterweight who barges forward and knows how to rough opponents up on the inside. Moreover, he can still crack. Hall of Fame boxer Timothy Bradley, no fan of Garcia, claims that the Mexican-American speed usage came about because of Garcia's inability to make weight, which was caused by Garcia's lax training. Despite Bradley's assertion being a rumor, Garcia's lackadaisical work ethic can be corroborated by Garcia's own words. After the tag fight, Garcia blamed the defeat on leading an undisciplined lifestyle. This might have seemed as an excuse at the time, but recall that Reynoso allegedly dropped Garcia from his stable. Was this because of Garcia's undisciplined ways? Moreover, another of Garcia's former trainers, Joe Goosen, once said that you don't train Ryan Garcia, you collaborate with him. This further suggests Garcia's penchant for calling the shots in training camp, perhaps as a way to avoid hard work. And finally, you will recall Garcia's prompt and short-lived retirement after the Campbell win. Is this a man unable to handle the rigors of the professional boxer's lifestyle? Garcia would do well to take Romero seriously. Remember, prior to the Haney bout, Garcia's attributes were being underrated after losing to Tank Davis. Although Romero's weapons are more limited, he nevertheless possesses his own strengths, which could topple an overconfident and/or under-trained Garcia. Do you think Garcia's abilities are underrated? Are you confident in his discipline? How much of a chance do you give Rolly Romero to topple the Instagram giant? Still under the age of 35, all of the characters in this card have time to forge all-time great legacies. The question is, who will come out on top? Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, sign up for free Patreon content, and feel free to fuel our Buy Me a Coffee app.